Hey, Rebel Rouser. I'm Alan Voivod, and this is Star Wars 7 by 7. We're at episode number 1595, and I've had a little less coffee today than I did yesterday, so the energy level will still be good for this episode, but it won't be at the, this one goes to 11 level of yesterday's episode. Although, I guess the whole conspiracy thing, it's really strange. Like, once your brain starts working that way, you kind of can't turn it off. And so I was going to be doing an update about episode 9 and what's been going on with the show. And, it's a good time to do an episode 9 update because we haven't done one in a while. And strangely enough, the whole thing about them locking stuff down, well, episode 9 is still pretty locked down as well. And we've found out about, another filming location. I'm saying we, but it's, of course, MakingStarWars.net that originally scooped this. And there have been, a number of, sightings and social media posts and all these sorts of things that seem to verify the shooting location. And I'm only going to tell you the country. It's not really going to tell you anything. The country is Jordan, for what it's worth. And, I got to thinking about this because I was looking at the reporting that Making Star Wars has been doing about it, and even their coverage has been comparatively scant, and that's not a knock on them by any stretch of the imagination. It's more of a understanding that, my goodness, they really are getting very good with locking down the details of stuff. But in particular, things that I was wondering about things that I was wondering about have to do with the social media post side of the situation. There are notes about cast members like John Boyega, for example, or Oscar Isaac's wife, who had posted from Jordan. And I got to thinking about this. And if you've used Instagram before, I'm sure you've had the experience where you took photos of something in some particular place and you weren't able to post them at that particular moment. So maybe you got home and then you dug up your photos and you posted your photos to Instagram, and when you had to tag the location for them, you were able to go back in and say, hey, I was at such and such a place, right? Even though at the moment that you're posting on Instagram, you're not actually in that place. So what does this actually mean? Well, it means potentially that whenever you see John Boyega posting on Instagram or anybody else posting on any other social media account about where they are and posting photos to suggest that they're there, they might not actually be there for the time period where they're posting the photo or the video. I mean, right? You had this experience, I've had this experience, I know. Now, is it possible that they are actually where they are when they're posting the photo? Yes, of course, absolutely. That is the case. But in thinking back to the interview that Benioff and Weiss did about Game of Thrones for Entertainment Weekly, and how there was a note in there about them meeting with Rian Johnson and Kathy Kennedy and talking about Star Wars and The Last Jedi and about the things that Lucasfilm has done to lock down secrets as much as possible, and them saying, yeah, they were telling us things that nobody had ever thought of, or that they hadn't even thought of, and it was kind of mind-blowing for them. And so the idea of misinformation being a part of that certainly seems like a possibility, especially with J.J. Abrams involved in misdirection, if you will. There's all of that sort of thing happening, not just in the production of the movie and how they want to control the information getting out, but even the way that JJ approaches his storytelling in general. That's what his mindset is for misdirection and misinformation, or at least leading you on in ways that are ultimately meant to just have you looking in the wrong direction on things, or making assumptions that aren't exactly what they're supposed to be. So that's just my take about what could or what might not be going on, just depending on how crazy you want to get with how you think about the folks posting on social media that are involved in the making of episode 9. One thing, though, that has also been making headlines is what is being labeled as a reveal on the Star Wars show. The idea that, when they were looking at this display case of various Star Wars objects, that they saw Rey's broken lightsaber and Andy Gutierrez making a comment about being able to really see the broken crystal inside of it, inside this prop. And so, what's happening out of that is people are jumping on it and saying, okay, now this is confirming that the lightsaber was really destroyed. I personally don't know how you could watch The Last Jedi and arrive at the conclusion that it wasn't destroyed and that the Kyber crystal itself wasn't shattered as a result of that final showdown between Rey and Kylo Ren in The Last Jedi. But be that as it may, it appears that, now we have another source of information suggesting for sure that it is utterly destroyed. And so the question for episode 9 then, of course, becomes, what is Rey going to do for a lightsaber? And there are basically two options. The first option is that she heads back to Ahch-To and finds Luke's green lightsaber, which apparently is part of his belongings. There is a mention of his quote-unquote weapon in the Last Jedi novelization by Jason Fry. So, the presumption is that it's his lightsaber and not his blaster or anything like that. Option 2, of course, is Rey making her own lightsaber with her own Kyber crystal. And this is certainly possible and easy enough. She's not even necessarily going to have to go to Ilum, which is one of the traditional homes of Kyber crystals that are used for lightsabers. In fact, if you think back to Star Wars Rebels, when Ezra Bridger got his Kyber crystal, it was actually just magically delivered to him in the middle of a Jedi temple on Lothal, and he was having a conversation with Yoda in a sort of spectral form, astral projection form, at least to, put it in terms that maybe you or I could understand or relate to. And so it wouldn't require Rey to necessarily go hunting for, a planet with, lost Kyber crystals or anything like that. There are a lot of different ways that she might be able to acquire a Kyber crystal and build her own lightsaber. And then, of course, there are all the Jedi texts, the sacred Jedi texts that she apparently took with her when she left from Ahch-To. And so I'm sure that there's probably some information about how to build a lightsaber in there, too. So that's what I got. That's what I got for you about episode 9 and its current state of development right now. They are still in production. We have not wrapped principal photography yet. So, as news breaks about it, then we'll let you know. And if it's, all little tiny things, then we'll just gather them up and we'll talk about them in one shot on a later podcast. But for now, that's going to do it for this one. Hope you will consider subscribing to the show wherever you're catching it if you're not doing that already. And I hope you'll consider supporting the show at patreon.com/SW7X7, supporting this daily dose of Star Wars joy for you. For now, though, it just remains for me to say thank you so much for joining me for this episode, and may the Force be with you, wherever in the world you may be.
This podcast is not endorsed or sponsored yet by Lucasfilm Limited, Disney, or 20th Century Fox, and is intended for entertainment and information purposes only. Star Wars, the Star Wars logo, all names and pictures of Star Wars characters, vehicles, and any other Star Wars-related items are registered trademarks and/or copyrights of Lucasfilm Limited or their respective trademark and copyright holders. May the Force be with them. All original content is copyright 2018 Star Wars 7x7. We hope you love it!